From the campus of the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School, this is Marketing Matters on Business Radio.
Hello and welcome. You're listening to Marketing Matters here on Business Radio, SiriusXM 132. I'm Barbara Kahn, the Patty and J.H. Baker Professor of Marketing, and I'm joined by my co-host, Americus Reed, the Whitney M. Young Jr. Professor of Marketing and the Brand Identity Theorist. Hello, Americus.
Hi, Barbara. I am so excited. We are marketers, and one of the things we do is promotion and advertising, and we are on the precipice of one of the biggest moments every year. That is, of course, the Super Bowl. The combatants have been decided, and now it's all about what sort of brands, products, services, organizations are going to get in on this action. So this will be exciting to talk about. What have we got on the program today?
Yes, of course. Yeah. Today we're going to talk Super Bowl.
Yes.
Because it is the biggest thing from a marketing point of view, and there's some football too. But really, it is about advertising. It's about the hype. It's about the stories. It's about the podcasts. It's about everything that's going on. And it's particularly exciting because it's in Las Vegas. So there's even more stuff to talk about from a marketing point of view.
Sin City.
And in order to do justice to this fantastic title, we have got the editor-in-chief of Ad Age on our show, Jeanine Poggi, who is here, and she
the guru.
has the T-shirt to prove it.
She is the guru. She is all things advertising. Yes.
So, Jeanine, thank you so much for being on the show and helping us discuss Super Bowl 2024.
Thank you for having me. Happy Super Bowl commercial week.
Yeah, right, exactly. So tell us a little bit about how exciting it is to be at Ad Age during the Super Bowl week.
We've been gearing up for this really since the holidays, getting ready for Super Bowl season. There's a lot that goes into it over at Ad Age, as you can imagine, waiting to see all the spots and getting them in and getting to review those ads and pinpoint the trends that will be big and the celebrities that will be buzzing and all of that. It's a lot of fun, but a lot goes into it.
So tell us a little what your role is. Do you get so all of us can see some of the ads before the game, and that's kind of part of the hype. Do you get it even before that? Do you have a relationship with these agencies? Or, tell us a little bit about behind the scenes, what happens when you're really in the business.
Yeah, come this Saturday, if I haven't seen all of the ads that will be airing on Sunday, I'll definitely wake up in nightmares. So yes, we typically get to see all of the ads before they run. We come up with our ad review, which will hit right after the game, sort of evaluate every single national ad that ran in the game. So we get an inside look, but I think even more so what makes it unique is the layers of how these commercials are made, the strategy that goes on to thinking about what are the creative tones for this year's, game? What are sort of the new emerging tech that's being added to Super Bowl ads? How do they pick what celebrities are going to be in the game? All of the fun stuff of how they pull off big game commercials is really what we're doing at it.
Oh, that's so
cool. But let me just jump in real quick because I want you to follow up really quickly on something. And that is, it sounds like you and the gurus get together and you watch the ads and you analyze them. How do you come up with a score? What are these dimensions that you use to figure out, well, this one did really well, or this one, talk us through the evaluation process that's going to be the output of the results of this is what we thought about these ads from your group.
At the very basic level, we are like everyone else, and that we're just on Slack immediately after we see an ad. We're who's that celebrity? Do you know that one? It's a lot of fun. We all look forward to doing this, but then we do take into account a lot of different things, sort of things that we've seen of what has worked well in the past, what types of ads, have won ad meter in the past. What types of creative are unique and different? A lot of times in any given year, you'll see some of the same tropes or things kind of emerge. And sometimes it blurs and it's hard to distinguish one ad from another in some years. What stands out, right? What looks different in a sea of, about 60 to 65 commercials that will air in the game? Which ones of those really resonate and stand out? Which one you walk away and you not only have a message and a story, but also kind of know what are they selling? What is the product? What is the brand message? And kind of can point the brand to the commercial and be able to identify that and remember that. Those are some of the things that we're really thinking about as we evaluate whether or not a commercial is a hit or a miss.
You're making me so excited because there's so many trends
I wish listeners
here.
could see Barbara's face right now because
so excited because
so
there's a
much
lot of things to talk about.
Tons.
I mean, let me save the fact that it's in Las Vegas and Taylor Swift for later. Let's talk a little bit about what you just said, because I think one of the trends you notice, and from your historic perspective, is that typically the ads are like beer commercials, alcohol, beer, or cars. And I know that one of the trends you talked about was that those are down a little bit. Do you want to talk a little bit about that, from what you're saying, the trend analysis and your historic perspective about the types of ads that run and what we're seeing this year?
We definitely are starting to see a shift. For sure, like you said, it was beer, snack foods, cars. Those were like the big categories historically in the Super Bowl. Interestingly, we definitely see, especially as more women watch the game, and we know that it's almost an even 50-50 split in women and men watching the Super Bowl. So increasingly over the last couple of years, you see like beauty brands coming in. Dove is back in this year. Elf advertised, for the first time nationally in the Super Bowl. You're definitely seeing more female-centric brands or commercials with more female-centric messaging. The lead characters in the commercial being women, just leaning into that, because really the division in terms of who's watching is very close to 50-50. And then not to bring the Taylor Swift in part, but for sure we're going to see the Swifties in the game this year. So you're definitely seeing a change in the types of brands this year. One of the big categories is actually candy and sweets. Not an unusual category, but they're in a very big way this year, which is interesting. They definitely come to the Super Bowl with much more lighthearted type commercials, making people laugh, having sort of that comfort and feel good feeling. So that is one category, the candy. We're calling it a little bit of the candy bowl here, that you'll see Reese's, Oreos,
There's so much to talk about. Yeah. Oh my God, you're just getting me so excited. So let's talk about candy. I mean, we can talk about beer too. I want to talk a little bit about beer because I want to get your reaction on that Bud commercial.
Yep.
But before we get to beer, which is more historic, let's talk about what you just mentioned, which is candy and cookies and the sweet category. So you're seeing M&M's is back, right? And Oreos, and both of them have always done really creative things. What do you think about their ads?
Yeah, so I think the candy ones are interesting. I think one of the risks with that many different kinds of sweets in the game is like not seeing distinguishing themselves one from another. I think with Oreo, you're seeing Kris Jenner in the spot. Right. And they're doing this play on like the idea of twisting an Oreo, which everyone does, and using that as like making a choice. So if it twists and the, cream is on one side or another, you make this or this choice, sort of like a heads or tails scenario. And they're playing off of that idea. They're interesting because I think what people really associate Oreo with in the Super Bowl, if you remember, is the dunk in the dark tweet. That was really something. And they really helped originate this idea of like real-time social media buzz and jumping in the moment in the game of like capturing people's attention, like jumping into a cultural moment. And so they originated that, right? And I think that adds itself to a little bit of intrigue of like what they might do more even on social media than necessarily like what their in-game ad will be, interestingly enough. I think that's true for a lot of brands. I think everyone will be paying attention to not only what we see, watching in the game, but then like, how do they take this off the TV online, whether it's X, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok in particular this year. How does that translate to social media? So that's what I think like some of the other interesting things will
that's interesting because that Oreo thing, really, you could see how it would translate very well to social media and stuff. Whenever I do that with my Oreos, it's never as neat and clean as it is on theirs.
Well, you have to practice.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I can totally see that.
Your Oreo twisting is not
as good. And then the other idea you were talking about is a change in celebrity. So Kris Jenner, that's not a traditional one. Typically in these Super Bowl ads, you see a lot of football players or sports athletes. And in the going back to the alcohol one, which is more, traditional, I think in the Michelob Ultra campaign, you see Dan Marino. I mean, that's a pretty sophisticated football fan who would know necessarily. I don't think the Swifties know who Dan Marino is, so like that's much more of a traditional ad, right?
Right.
Yeah, look, I think a lot of them, celebrities in general, obviously have always been like an incredibly critical part of Super Bowl ads. Historically, you do see a lot of like famous faces that most people will know. That is no different this year. You're still going to see that. I mean, you have Christopher Walken for BMW. Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be in a State Farm ad. These are some major celebrities with a lot of clout that will be in Super Bowl commercials. But then you'll also see on top of that some lesser known faces that, like Starry, for Starry, we have Ice Spice, who is a rapper, whose actual music sort of bubbled up on TikTok. She will be starring in the Starry commercial. You saw in the Nerds a teaser, Addison Rae, who's also big on TikTok, she was in that. So there are different types of celebrities. I think ultimately, like when you're looking at a brand who's paying $7 million for 30 seconds of airtime, they really want to reach as many people and connect with as many people across generations as possible. So we're actually seeing a lot of brands sort of like double up on the number of celebrities in their ads, right? So it's not enough to just have one celebrity, one big celebrity in the ad. You'll have cameos, right? Like you may have made one star in the spot, but you'll have some cameos of others sort of come in to sort of touch on all of the different demographics and generations to bring everyone in. So everyone who's watching the commercial can say, oh, I knew someone or someone that's in there.
In that Michelob Ultras, you not only have Dan Marino, who's probably not as well known, and only football fans know him for sure. Yeah. But then you have Lionel Messi, and Jason Sudeikis. How do you say his name?
Something like that.
Yeah, right, whatever. But like he's Ted Lasso. That's how I know him.
Right?
Exactly.
100%.
And so that is, just to your point, is a very broad audience base. Somebody will know one of those. The international
100%.
people know the soccer star.
Right.
The football people know the football star, and everybody else will know Ted Lasso.
100%. Jeanine Poggi, editor-in-chief for Ad Age, speaking with us. She's the guru and has been studying and analyzing the advertising for the Super Bowl. Question, Barbara, I remember one Super Bowl where a lot of the ads were like purpose-driven and dealing with issues. Jeanine, is that out the window now? Are people like, listen, I don't want to hear about anything that has to do with world politics or social impact. This is Sunday. It's the Swifties. I want to see Taylor Swift. I want to have fun. I want to see Gronk try to kick a extra point. Are people done with that? I mean, is this the moment where please stay out of?
Let me add to what Americus is saying and ask you in particular to talk about Budweiser there, because that's an example of a misstep in some purpose-driven marketing, and now they're back to the Clydesdale dog combination. So just that's a specific concrete example of what the more general trend that Americus is noting.
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely times where we saw more purpose-driven leaning into things that could be either controversial or divisive. I don't think we'll see anything as leaning in for politics. That's for sure. Like you're not really going to see any brand come in with a message that can like split the nation. But it's not completely devoid of any sort of like social good, purpose-driven marketing. Two in particular, Google and Dove will have spots that sort of touch on this. Dove is using its commercial to promote girls in sports. So it's working with Nike on a program where they are pushing to help keep young girls, who they say typically drop out of sports by age about 14 due to a low body confidence, to help promote keeping girls in sports. So that's definitely more of a purpose-driven, positive message.
To your point, it doesn't divide people.
No,
That's kind of a
right.
positive.
Yeah.
Right. It's not something that people are going to go in there and like not support girls in sports, right?
100%.
Right. Yeah.
Another one is Google is using its commercial to promote a Google Pixel, a feature on there that helps visually impaired people take pictures.
Again, who's going to be against visually impaired?
Right. So the way their approach to this was really interesting. The entire spot is shot through the lens of if you were visually impaired. So like interesting way, and definitely going to be one that stands out, right? Because it'll look so different than everything else in the game. But they're definitely not Dove and Google like lighthearted, funny, whimsical. Like these are definitely more serious in tone and nature.
And isn't there an anti-Semitism ad that
Yeah, there's a PSA for an anti-Semitism ad. There's also Jesus is back.
right?
Oh, wow.
Well, if you guys remember from
Wait a minute. When did he
last
leave?
year,
Sorry, did I
He
miss?
started last year.
I didn't get the memo. Okay, I didn't get the memo.
Jesus
Wow.
is back. Jesus is back.
Jesus back.
There will be two
Anti-Semitism,
ads.
even that ad is not a divisive ad. It's supposed to bring unite people together type of ad. It's not a politically
Yeah, and the
pointed ad.
Jesus one, interestingly, I think last year there was a little bit more concern going into the game that there would be like some polarizing messages. This year it's all about like love thy neighbor. So like treat people well. So we'll see what those look like.
Okay, so let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about Taylor Swift.
Dear.
Are there going to
The
be
Swifties,
Travis
Barbara.
Kelce ads? I mean, in most football games, like 1 out of 2 is a Travis Kelce ad, as far as I can tell. Is that going to be true in the Super Bowl too?
Yeah.
Right now, we actually have not seen any commercials yet that feature Travis Kelce. That said, I think just the momentum around Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce will be felt from the brand side during the game. I know that there are lots of agencies right now working on behalf of their clients, thinking about and planning for what our brand's going to do on social to lean into that momentum. There are plenty of so-called war rooms gathering all of the different imagery that they can find and prepping fun little one-liners that they can use on Super Bowl Sunday on X and on, Instagram and all of that. To lean into the moment. So
the meme factory
meme factory for sure is working overtime this week to kind of think about like how do brands lean into Taylor Swift.
I remember a time, Barbara and Jeanine, where they would cut to at the end of the game and they would ask the winning quarterback, "Hey, you just won the Super Bowl. What are you going to do?" And I'm going to Disneyland. So maybe it'll be I'm going to the Taylor Swift concert. I don't know, but I think it's interesting because right. All of this, but you made a good point, Barbara, which is like, how do we create? And you can comment on this, Jeanine. Like relatable, I think is a big authentic. This is the words I keep hearing: relatable and connecting and resonating with people. So I'm assuming that the ad age gurus have like a relatability, connection, resonance sort of analysis that goes along with this. Can you share with us like what is one of the ads that is like the top, that's bubbling to the top right now that you're saying, hey, this one we believe with good high probabilistic likelihood is going to be a big hit? Can you point to one that we can expect?
Unfortunately not yet. It's a little too soon to get like a full read on that. What I will say is we did do a survey with a Harris poll about like what do people want from Super Bowl ads, and probably not surprising to anyone, like humor does bubble up to the top of like what people want from Super Bowl ads, which is interesting. I do think, people want to enjoy themselves. They want to laugh. They want to like be in on the joke. And I think that's probably like the hardest part. We were having this like debate a little bit internally this morning. The BMW Christopher Walken ad is out today, and we were watching that, and I thought it was funny and enjoyed it. And, I made the comment to one of my colleagues of like, I wonder if you don't know who Christopher Walken is. This spot is so beholden on the idea of people imitating Christopher Walken that if you don't get it, like if you didn't know that joke or know how people imitate him, it would be hard for you to like find that amusing and bring it in. So it really does. I do think that for the most part, still Super Bowl advertisers are trying to reach the broadest demographic possible. But as we think about all of this, and definitely something that we've been thinking a lot about at Ad Age is like the Gen Z demographic.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you.
It's a massively growing demographic. We've seen just a ton of interest like from our audience around like, how do you more authentically connect with the Gen Z? Where do you, relate to them? And I still think a lot of that is not going to happen on the TV, but that's where brands are going to be thinking like off TV to online of how do they then take those messages that maybe they don't know the celebrity in the spot, or maybe it's something that they weren't even born when it was, a concept, but that you could take it offline and then make that ad relevant to the audience.
So let me
where they're engaging, right? Like that's where they're watching.
Yeah, let me double down on that a little, because not just in the Super Bowl, in general, I teach Marketing 101 here. And so I teach freshmen, and they're 18. So they're like really maybe even getting closer to Generation Alpha. And when I ask them, what do you think of advertising or linear advertising? they're not big fans. You know, that isn't the way they think of advertising. So this is one of the big remaining linear advertising world. So from your perspective at Ad Age, what do you think is the way Gen Z is looking at ads and thinking about this kind of thing? And you started to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, look, like, let's just take
that.
some couple of recent things that have happened outside of Super Bowl. Look at Stanley's, the Stanley water tumblers, and then look at, I don't know if you're familiar with the brand Drunk Elephant, but they've been all over on TikTok because of how young Gen Alpha girls are going to Sephora to buy Drunk Elephant products, and it's a massive social media trend that like increased Drunk Elephant sales. And when you look at Stanley and how all of its momentum came from social media, and you look at Drunk Elephant, this beauty brand that like during the holidays was like the top of like 10-year-old girls' wish lists.
Interesting.
You just see, it's evident how this generation is finding brands, engaging with brands, and that is really on TikTok and on social. So I think that you're right, like the ads that are made for TV are going to continue to look like the ads that are made for TV because that audience is different than the ones on TikTok and how they're engaging with brands there. But I think what will be smart, what smart brands will do is they'll do both, right? They'll find a way to like appeal to the audience that is watching traditionally, and that's where they're going to get their, you know, commercials and connect with brands, and then find ways to also in the same breath connect with younger audiences on social.
And that's why I think Taylor Swift is interesting, because she is bringing in
Bridge
on people who are not that interested in football, frankly. You know, I mean, the new audience that she's bringing are very young, female, not football oriented, but they do like the hype. They like the excitement. Something fun is going on. And if you can create it in the social media world, I think there's incredible opportunity. So it'd be interesting to see, like you're saying, people sitting in the war rooms and exactly what creativity will come out of that event. And I think it's more and more important as you think about the younger population here.
Absolutely.
So when we're talking also about the uniqueness of this Super Bowl, the other thing that's interesting is Las Vegas. And the Sphere. And have you thought anything about what's going on in town and the fact that it's in Las Vegas and how that changes things?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think the Sphere is a really interesting opportunity for brands, ones that we'll definitely see play out over the course of this week and on Super Bowl Sunday. I think there are some opportunities for brands to, you know, buy into the Sphere and have like an added boost to what they're doing, you know, on TV, Las Vegas in particular on the ground, some of the events that are taking place and opportunities to connect with people in person, I think are really interesting. I think this does make it a little bit more unique than perhaps other Super Bowls. And I'll be interested to even see during the game when they cut away from the stadium, like, do you see a shot where you can see some brands in there that like kind of adds a little bit more bang for the buck if like you zoom out and there are some brands in cool and unique ways on the Sphere. So
yeah, that would be very cool if they do that. When the Eagles played in the Super Bowl and they cut away, they showed the skyline of Philadelphia all dressed in green, you know, but that's not quite the same thing as Las Vegas and the Sphere, you know, and what they can do with that. So that would really be an interesting kind of thing. We definitely should see stuff like that. That will be very cool. Absolutely. And so one of the other things I was thinking about is in Super Bowl, we not only see the hype running up to the game, but then we see a lot of hype after the game and a lot of evaluations. And you weigh in.
This is what, to your point, Barbara, this is the important part, right? How long can it be extended and discussed in the word of mouth space?
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, you were saying some of it's going to be game time decision in the war rooms and things, but what do you anticipate is going to happen following the Super Bowl to hype up things?
Yeah, you know what's interesting? It's really a before, during, and maybe a day or two after. I have found over like recent years that people move on really quickly. So there might be a little bit of buzz after, obviously, if something really pops the night of the game, if there's some like major social buzz, we'll hear about it for the next few days, but just as quickly something else will come in the news cycle, right? And it'll sort of go away. So I think capitalizing it is really like the couple of days this week, right? Game day, and then probably the Monday or Tuesday after are the big moments. We really do see a drop off after that in interest. I think people.
But you might remember last year, didn't Rihanna announce her pregnancy?
It was less it was less of an announcement.
Umbrella,
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
here.
But that generated hype after the Super Bowl for quite a while. I mean, so it's an opportunity
Yeah.
to create an event like that
Sure.
and to do something. Would you anticipate anything like that possibly happening? Because she got incredible.
Yeah.
Um,
Who is the halftime entertainment this year?
Usher. Usher is.
Usher, right? Okay,
So
interesting.
he's actually in at least one Super Bowl ad, making a little cameo, the BMW one.
BMW,
But
nice.
I expect we'll see him pop up in various places too with brands.
Interesting.
So.
Yeah.
Because it is an opportunity with all those eyeballs to create some kind of news, like Rihanna, who's a brilliant marketer, let's just say.
Her beauty brand just blew up.
Yeah,
right?
it's
Or was already blowing
amazing.
up, but then it was
Yeah, but she took advantage of it and do things like that. So somebody who's smart can do something along the lines of that, and this opportunity, and then give it a life. To your point, maybe it's not natural given, but if it's newsworthy, they'll be able to give it a life after the Super Bowl, I think. But then we move very quickly into Valentine's Day and
yeah. The next marketing event to over commercialize is going to happen as well.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, Jeanine, it's really wonderful for you to come on the show and
Thank you
talk
so much.
about this and
Yeah.
talk about the big day and everything that you and your team bring to the advertising and to understanding advertising. So where can our listeners go to keep up with you?
Yeah, so we're actually going to be on Instagram Live all night of the Super Bowl with commentaries. We'll be live all night, and you can pop in there, come join us, come chat with us, tell us what you like, tell us what you don't like, and you can hear our commentary. And then all of our coverage, you could watch the ads, watch the teasers, keep up with all the trends at adage.com/Super Bowl.
Wow, that's fantastic. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jeanine.
We're going to take a short break. Up next, it's Andrew Sneyd, who's the Executive Vice President of Marketing at FanDuel. So we'll have a different way of looking at the Super Bowl. This is Marketing Matters, Business Radio, SiriusXM 132. Hello. Welcome back to Marketing Matters here on Business Radio, SiriusXM 132. I'm Barbara Kahn, the Patty and J.H. Baker Professor of Marketing, and I'm joined by my co-host, Americus Reed, the Whitney M. Young Jr. Professor of Marketing and the Brand Identity Theorist. And today, on our Spotlight section, we are talking about 2024 Super Bowl marketing.
Oh, yes.
And we're really excited to have a very interesting guest to talk about this from an interesting perspective. We have as our guest Andrew Sneyd, who's the Executive Vice President of Marketing at FanDuel. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me.
Excellent.
So Americus and I were talking about this. We know what FanDuel is, and I imagine tons of people do. But I also imagine some people don't, because it's kind of a new idea. So can you, before we talk a little bit about you and your most recent marketing and what you're doing for this Super Bowl, tell us about what FanDuel is and your revenue model and like its history.
Sure. FanDuel is a relatively new brand. We're an innovative sports tech entertainment company that changes the way customers are engaging with sports. We're America's #1 sports book online. We also offer an exciting casino product, and we started as a daily fantasy sports brand. So we're relatively new. As legalized sports betting continues to expand throughout America, we're excited to be the #1 and excited for ways in which people can actively get involved with the sports they love.
So let me back up a bunch of what you said. So fantasy football, that's how you started, right? Is that right?
That is how we started, yes.
And so what that means is like a bunch of different people play fantasy football and they need some way to like figure out what the statistics are and how things are working and who owes what money. And is that how you got involved, got kind of doing that kind of stuff?
Yeah, we started as daily fantasy sports. So rather than having a season-long commitment to your team, which is how a lot of people enjoy fantasy sports, it was an opportunity to play peer-to-peer against others, just perhaps on a Sunday against each other in football.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how we started. And then when sports betting was legalized in 2018, we had a natural audience of folks that wanted to participate, and it gave us a great head start that we've turned into leadership in sports betting.
Now, when you say it's legalized, it's not legal everywhere, right? It's a state by state kind of thing. And you're in a certain number of states. I think
we are now legalized for sports betting in 21 states. So there's still lots of opportunity as more and more states look to expand and make this experience legalized and controlled and taxed.
And so how's your revenue? Do you make money on the bets? You make money on advertising? You make money on sponsorship?
We primarily make money on the bets. So the opportunity for folks to put a bet together. And on average, people should be doing this as a form of entertainment because not unlike brick and mortar casinos, the house is likely to win. And the opportunity is there that if you enjoy a $5 wager on tonight's basketball game, it's worth it whether you win or lose. You just have a lot more fun on the edge of your seat cheering for the outcomes that you hope occur.
Let me ask you this, Andrew, because I think you're pointing to something that's kind of an interesting conceptual issue for the brand of sports betting more generally. And that's the idea of, creating a less stigmatized view of the entertainment piece. And it sounds like that you all at FanDuel were very cognizant of the fact that there may be some potential negative baggage about the gambling. It has this sort of like a bookie and a loan shark and all of this stuff that we see in the movies. And so to create like an opportunity, but still maintain a kind of positive social impact as you bring this entertainment to fans, that was something that was built in initially to the strategy, it sounds like. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. We want to make sure that we're seeing genuinely, we want to help people and we want to do this in a trusted way. So for sure, people want to have fun with sports betting, the excitement of enjoying sports more. And we need to do that in a context of us earning the trust of our customers and society that we will do this in the right way. So we actively monitor responsible play. We're really eager to make sure that we treat our customers' data with extreme care. And so there's a lot that comes with building a brand that is in a category that's become newly regulated.
So I'm curious about your relationship with, say, the NFL or the baseball league or what. So first of all, if you start with fantasy, and I don't know that much about it, but my son is avid into it. And it really changed his watching behavior. Let's look at football, for example. So he has his own personal teams. Of course, he loves the Eagles. He was brought up.
He's a Dolphins fan, too.
And Dolphins. Yeah. So he has two teams to start with. But now that he's in fantasy, he has a bunch of teams. So like in his living room, he has like 4 TV sets. Because he has to be watching all of these different games because he not only has his personal rooting interest, but then he has, the fantasy rooting interest. And so my guess is this has been great for football or for baseball or for any of this stuff. But I'm just wondering, Americus and I were talking about it beforehand. There's some ethical issues on, gambling and the teams and the players. And, there's some issues there. So I imagine this is positive from the NFL's point of view, but I'm curious if you can kind of unpack some of the complexities of the relationship.
Yeah, so we're fortunate to be an official partner of the NBA, of the NFL, and other leagues. First to the core question, I also have an 18-year-old son who loves his fantasy football league, and I watch him practicing to understand how he takes stats and makes it work to try to make his team better. That's very different than what we do. So we have you must be 21 years old and you have to have banking information and social security information to prove you're an of-age customer to participate in our real money gaming products. So they're different. The relationship with the leagues is one where we want to make sure that we're building this the right way. So for example, we just created an education series with our partners at the NBA on what more we can do to make sure that people understand how to spot people that need help, what to do about it. And with the NFL, you can imagine as they're, whether it's a season-long fantasy or daily games, it's more ways to be enjoying the sport, even if the outcome becomes obvious that it is a very lopsided game. There's still lots of reasons to keep watching. So It's a relationship where we both want to build this the right way.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because a lot of times when we talked about sports marketing, you would talk if your team was winning, it was easy to market, and if your team was losing, it was kind of harder to market. Like for example, in the NBA here in Philadelphia, Embiid just got injured. That's like a really big issue for basketball here in the city. And my son has season tickets to that, and all of a sudden those tickets are worth less, so but this is a way, like you're saying, to stay engaged. Yeah, to stay engaged. And that's a very interesting, just from a theoretical marketing point of view, a way to make the game more interesting without having to just rely on the winning and losing seasons. That's really fascinating. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, there are times when I remind everyone on our team that the core of what we're selling is entertainment tonight. So for example, in your Philly 76ers example, the ability to put a $5 parlay on tonight's game are they going to beat the spread? Maybe they're going to hit the over. And Embiid would have gotten more than 6 rebounds. Now you're actively watching the game, leaning in and caring about it in much more depth.
Yes.
And you may or may not hit that $5 parlay that maybe would turn into $40. But even if you lose, you've enjoyed your $5 entertainment that night, maybe more than the risk you would have placed on renting a movie on Amazon for $5.
Interesting. That's really
so like what does that do? So what does that do for competition? What does it do to the players knowing that I think it's positive. I think anything that keeps the engagement up sounds like it's good for the sport and the players and everything, especially like in this example where it's pretty sad for the Sixers that indeed that's like a really big deal. And now you're talking about keeping that game interesting. That I think that's interesting. Does it have an effect on the players, or there's a reason why they can't gamble, so how does all that work? Have you thought about that?
Well, it's important for the integrity of the game that there's very clear rules from each of the sports for how they want to make sure that this is managed with their players. And so we're happy to work with them on that and make sure that whatever rules they want, we're delivering. In general, the opportunity is there for us to bring into the spotlight what previously was in the shadows and make sure that, that this is regulated well, that people that need help can get help, and that it is taxed for the benefit of the state.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point, because it's not like this didn't go on anyway.
Right.
You're just like bringing it open and actually
making it positive and creating like a positive impact on things. Super interesting. Andrew Sneyd, EVP of Marketing for FanDuel, joining us here on this special Super Bowl edition of Marketing Matters. Question for you. How do you come up, Andrew, with the things that will be parlayed, that will be contested in a game? Like, how does this happen where it's like, where do the opportunities and the menu of possible things that I could put that $5 on, where does that come from? And is that generated from some analysis of the most popular kinds of things within a game, within a team? How do you all figure out those kinds of analytics?
Yeah, that's a great question. So first, we're a regulated sports book, which means that we can only offer what the state allows us to be able to make as a market. So things like offering a $5 wager on whether Travis Kelce will propose to it's something very interesting, but it's not on the field.
Wow, that's a moneymaker, man. It's too bad.
But we can offer the things that we know people are interested in. So for example, we know right now that the most likely outcome, what the bettors have decided is most likely to occur, is that Travis Kelce will get a touchdown. That's our most popular prop bet right now.
Interesting.
And you can bet anything from, will it be the first touchdown? Will a running back get over yards?
It's awesome. Yeah.
Some states are different and allow on the field action to include the color of Gatorade and heads or tails. But for the most part, it's about the play between the whistles.
Interesting. There's an interesting dynamic, right? Because imagine if you're on the other team, you're on the defense, and you know, like, hey, it's something here. I got to stop Travis Kelce here, which they're trying to do anyway. You know,
it changes behavior. That's
very
exactly what I was wondering.
Yeah,
if you know if certain things are,
yeah.
I mean, and that's the reason why players can't bet, because
Right.
it'll change
That's
their
right.
behavior, and they're supposed to be motivated by the competition.
That's right. Interesting.
But it was stuff that was going on anyway, so now it's going on in a more of a regulated, controlled manner.
Right.
For the Super Bowl, we'll have over 600 different markets that we offer. And for the most part, it's all about whether or not the player who's trying to achieve those things will get them. So it lines up with them wanting to do their job at their best.
Yes,
people have the opportunity to bet whether they think they'll occur or think they won't occur. So the players just can get after doing their job, and this can be
correct.
And as long as it's constructive like that, like in the Embiid example, I think can also be a motivator.
100%.
So, you know, even though maybe the Sixers won't win without Embiid, that I don't really say that. I know they can win without Embiid, but you can also motivate other kind of behavior on the court, you know, which people might bet on, and it could be positive, even if it's not necessarily for the win.
Interesting.
So I'm curious, like, from a marketing point of view, this is Marketing Matters here on SiriusXM 130.
Business radio powered by the Wharton School.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The Super Bowl's got to be, for everybody, it's got to be an important marketing opportunity. But for you, it's got to be a particularly important marketing opportunity. So before you tell us about your particular or specific campaigns, how do you view this as an opportunity, and what did you do to get ready, and what are you hoping to achieve from any kind of affiliation with the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think the difference for FanDuel versus all other brands is a stark one. We are actually a part of the game, as opposed to an advertiser during the game, where our product is central for our customers and the experience that they have on Super Bowl Sunday. So we wanted to make sure that in whatever way we bring the marketing to life in this moment, we don't advertise on the game the way any other category, a CPG, a car company, and others could participate. We wanted to be an important part of Super Bowl Sunday, which is why we created the campaign that we've called the Kick of Destiny. And this is the second year of the campaign with our sequel. Rob Gronkowski, four-time Super Bowl champion, has the opportunity to redeem from missing the kick last year, and an opportunity in a live spot 100%. Right before kickoff to make the opportunity for everyone that picks correctly. They can pick if you miss, they can pick if he'll make, and if they pick correctly, they share in $10 million of winnings.
Wow.
So how did you pick him? I mean, he's Tom Brady's friend, right? Isn't that,
yeah, you could say that, Mark. They are compadres, yes.
Yeah, they make history together. So obviously anybody who's a real football player, I mean, football fan knows him. But how did you pick him, and why did you pick him? And I mean, he's not a kicker, right? So like
that's exactly why we picked him.
Exactly.
So when we first introduced this to him, he looked across the table at me and said, "But Andrew, I catch, I don't kick." That's why it's interesting for everyone.
That's interesting. Yeah.
This is often an overlooked part of the game. It's usually a dramatic finishing moment of the game as a kick. And he's now got a big appreciation for the mental toughness that it takes in that moment, and then just how hard it is to consistently kick a ball straight and long.
Yes.
He took it very seriously, trained.
He's trading.
Terrible when he started. He would get 1 out of every 20 kicks correct. And we thought, oh man, this is going to look terrible. But we got him a trainer. Can't take the athlete away from the competition. He got really focused on it to make sure that he could put up a respectful attempt, and was so eager to bring it back this year.
That's amazing. We saw him practicing with random objects on the Jimmy Fallon show. That was fantastic. He did pretty well. So he's into it now. This is like a big deal. The kick is going to happen before the game, Andrew?
So this year we've made it that we actually have 2 ads.
Okay.
The first is the live event of him kicking, and it's going to happen right after the anthem and right before the coin toss.
Wow.
And then we have to quickly edit together depending on the result, the version of our spot if he makes versus the version of our spot if he
right.
That's cool.
We have a 42-second edit window to get that done and get it up as our ad in the second quarter.
Wow.
Because last year we had just enough make it hair gray of a live ad. Why don't we also add it?
Yeah, this is like a pit stop at NASCAR or Formula. I mean, it's like it's got to happen so fast, right, Andrew? It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to, and just like them, it's preparation and practice. So
interesting.
We have to have the masters ready, and we do full game time rehearsals Wednesday and Friday this week to make sure we
That's
get it.
incredible. Now, Andrew, how many people will be watching at that moment when the Super Bowl starts?
Well, I'm interested to see whether or not the Taylor Swift effect takes the numbers up beyond what has been there previously. We know that our core audience is there, and all of the people that still have an opportunity and haven't yet decided to try out a sports book are watching. In total, there's probably 110 to 120 million eyeballs on both the kick itself and just before halftime, the opportunity for us to put the celebration on whatever the result was.
Wow, that's incredible. The Super Bowl is so amazing, right, Barbara? And just in terms of the number of eyeballs in that moment, like tuned in and like really paying attention.
Well, and one of the things that's interesting about this year's Super Bowl is that it's in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
And the fact that that is the gambling capital of the world, and there had been some resistance to having it in Las Vegas in the past because it's always been somewhat of an uneasy relationship between gambling and sports for the reasons we were talking about. So the fact you were talking about two things that make this different. One is that Las Vegas really does make it different. And there's a lot, the sphere and all these other stuff that's going on in that environment. And the other thing really is Taylor Swift, and what the Swifties are going to do. So have you started to talk about that, but what do you think about that is in terms of what it does to the business and, football or sports or the idea of making it more of an entertainment kind of thing?
Yeah.
What is your personal feeling about that, even if it may not affect your business feeling, or maybe it does? I don't know.
No, we already see that Travis Kelce is the most popular prop bet person. So I don't think it's surprising that might be more than just his amazing football play.
Correct.
Obviously, it's about expanding the reach. And if you're the NFL, there's not much more you can expand. So they kind of have gotten quite lucky with the fact that an incremental audience is going to turn in that may not have otherwise watched. Everyone that loves football is clearly there.
Right.
And there's going to be an even bigger audience that comes with it. So somehow the NFL goes from number one to even more number one, I think.
But, this idea of celebrity isn't totally new. I mean, Tom Brady had kind of a famous wife as well, or, partner. So, how is it different? Do you think it's different what's happening with Taylor Swift than what happened with Tom Brady, who's pretty big celebrity, and
it wasn't culturally iconic. Maybe I'm misreading it, but if it feels like this is a moment that is has so much more scale, Barbara. Would you say that's correct in your analysis?
That's what I'm seeing too. Just the magnitude. This path there's been other famous celebrities dating quarterbacks and players in past. This just takes the biggest pop icon in the world, multiplies it by the biggest sporting moment in the world. And
it's like
nothing.
mind-boggling. It really is what's going to happen. But if you see all the little videos of all the Swifties, they still don't understand football.
they don't need to understand. Yeah, like Andrew said, that they're going to be entertained. That's all that matters.
They don't get exactly what's going on. And of course, here in Philly, we have our own little twist on it with Jason Kelce, and that's raised up the visibility of his own daughters and his wife, and it really has a lot of other effects besides just what happens on the field. So you talked a little bit about how FanDuel started. I'm curious what your personal relationship is to the company and how you got involved in this and what you bring to the party.
Yeah, so I've been here for 3 years, and in FanDuel time, that's a really long time. We're a 3,000 person company now. It was probably only about 600 when I started. My background is CPG. I started at Kraft. Then I went into the beer world and I managed the Budweiser brand globally. Made
Oh,
fun Super
interesting.
Bowl work during my time there.
Yeah.
And sort of the parallels exist. How do you build a brand well, an entertainment brand well in a regulated world? That made a lot of sense for me to be able to enjoy this next step into the world of FanDuel.
Well, now that you have Budweiser history, let's ask you a tiny bit about that Bud campaign. I don't know if you've seen what the ads are that they're going to do for the Super Bowl, but they're going back to traditional branding and trying to get away from all the controversy. I mean, just informally, do you have any reaction to that and all the controversy that went around Bud Light? And
I am personally really proud of what they're putting in this year, but I have a unique perspective that they're bringing back one of the ads that I'm very proud to have been part of building, which is the puppy love spot, where the end of the Budweiser ad includes the dog back licking the Clydesdale, and that was an amazing moment in my career 10 years ago. So I'm excited to see it back.
oh, that's interesting because I
That's beautiful.
looked at the ad. I looked at the ad, and that is exactly how it ends again.
Yeah.
So they're really trying to bring back. Let's get rid of all this controversy we did in the meantime, and let's go back to what our brand
Very
is
nice.
known for.
Your work, Andrew, is evergreen. Congratulations, sir.
That's very
Thank you. No, and I do think it's wise to try to, I celebrate the same mindset, thinking about Super Bowl Sunday is different, and it's a day for us to move past selling and to genuinely be a part of the entertainment for the day with America. And I know my ex-colleagues at Anheuser-Busch think of it similarly. And, it is genuinely an opportunity for them to reconnect and remind people about the tradition that Budweiser plays on Super Bowl Sunday and the role that it can have in people's lives.
Got it.
Well, that's pretty good. Well, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us today. So where can our listeners go to follow you and everything that's going on at FanDuel? And if they want to get involved in this betting and all that other stuff, can you give us some detail on how they can do that?
Yeah, well, I guess first, the ability to make your pick. If Rob's going to make or miss, it's a free pick. You download the app. You don't have to bet anything. You can make a free pick. It's the easiest way to have a first step into the world of sports betting. And please enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. We're pleased to be a part of it, and we look forward to the moment.
Excellent.
Well, that's exciting.
Very
Thank you
exciting.
very much for joining us
Thanks,
today.
Thanks,
Well, that's all we have time for today. And we'd like to thank our producers, Dion Simpkins and Dana Cash. We're here every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time, and we replay our show several times throughout the week. You can follow our show and see our history or shelf of podcasts if you want. If you go to Knowledge at Wharton and in the podcast tab, and you'll see our show Marketing Matters there. And you can also follow Business Radio at SXM Business for information about all our programming. Thank you all for listening today. We'll be back next week. Till then, this has been Marketing Matters. I'm Barbara Kahn, here with Americus Reed, Business Radio, SiriusXM 132.